Hi, and welcome to Elite NWO Agenda on YouTube. Large numbers of people believe that an economic crash is coming next year based on a 7-year cycle of economic crashes that goes all the way back to the Great Depression. What I am about to share with you is very controversial. Some of you will love it, and some of you will think that it is utter rubbish. I will just present this information and let you decide for yourself what you want to think about it. Before, I've discussed many of the economic cycle theories that all seem to agree that we are on the verge of a major economic downturn in this country. But there is an economic cycle that I did not mention previously, that a lot of people are talking about right now. And if this cycle holds up once again in 2015, it will be really bad news for the US economy. Looking back, the most recent financial crisis that we experienced was back in 2008. Lehman Brothers collapsed, the stock market crashed, and we were plunged into the worst recession that we have experienced as a nation since the Great Depression. You can see what happened to the Dow Jones Industrial Average on the chart that I've put on this video. Prior to that, the last time that the stock market experienced a major decline of that nature was during the bursting of the dot-com bubble 7 years earlier. 2001 was a year of recession for the US economy and of big trouble for stocks. And oh yeah, a little event known as 9/11 happened that year. 7 years before that, in 1994, investors experienced the worst bond market of their lifetimes. The following is how Reuters recalls the carnage. The 1994 bond market massacre is remembered with horror. By those who lived through it, yields on 30-year treasuries jumped some 200 basis points in the first 9 months of the year, hammering investors and financial firms, not to mention thrusting Mexico into crisis and bankrupting Orange County. Going back another 7 years brings us to 1987. Anyone that lived through that era remembers Black Monday and the horrible stock market crash very well. The next major economic crash prior to 1987 was in the early 1980s. In 1980, the S&L crisis was blooming and everyone was talking about the stagflation that we were experiencing under Jimmy Carter. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates dramatically to combat inflation. And this helped precipitate the very deep recession that we are experienced early in Ronald Reagan's first term. 7 years prior to 1980 brings us to 1973. Too many young Americans that year does not have any significance, but older Americans remember the Arab oil embargo and the super long lines at the gas pumps really well. In addition, a recession began in 1973, which ended up stretching all the way until 1975. And those that have studied things say that perhaps that the pattern keeps going back all the way to the Great Depression. Many correctly point out that the stock market crash, which began the Great Depression, was in 1929, but actually the worst year for the stock market during the Great Depression was in 1931, and 1931 perfectly fits into the cycle. So we have this pattern of economic crashes occurring approximately every 7 years. But there is an additional element to this cycle which makes it even more extraordinary. As Jonathan Kahn has pointed out, This 7-year cycle also lines up with the 7-year Shemitah cycle that we find in the Bible. For those not familiar with it, during the Shemitah year, the people of Israel were commanded to let their land rest for a full year. It was also supposed to be a time of releasing of debt. But for the most part of the people of Israel did not observe the Shemitah year, and the Bible that is mentioned as one of the reasons why they were exiled to Babylon for 70 years. The Shemitah year also begins in the fall, and the upcoming Shemitah year is going to start about a month from now. We will see things happen during the Shemitah year that are similar to things that we have seen in the past Shemitah years. For example, on September 17th, 2001, we witnessed the greatest one-day stock market crash in US history. Up until that time, it happened on the 29th of Elul on the Jewish calendar, which is the day right before Rosh Hashanah. That record stood for 7 years until the massive stock market crash of September 29th, 2008. That date also corresponded with the 29th of Elul on the Jewish calendar, the day right before Rosh Hashanah. Will the pattern hold up in 2015? Well, the 29th of Elul falls on Sunday in 2015, so the stock market will be closed. But it is very interesting to note that there will be a solar eclipse on that same very day. And as Jonathan Kahn recently told WND, similar solar eclipses in the past have preceded major financial disasters. So, what should we make of all this? I'm sure that some of you will dismiss this as pure coincidence and speculation. Others will find it utterly fascinating. But one thing is for sure, people are going to be talking about this 7-year cycle all over the internet. When they ask you what you think, what are you going to say? Let us know in the comment section below. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Elite NWO Agenda, for latest updates. Thank you.